He jokingly asked for a kiss. The alien woman's reply was beyond unexpected. The question left his mouth before he had the chance to stop it. It wasn't that Ethan had meant to ask anything deeply philosophical or even remotely serious, it was just one of those stray thoughts that skidded into his brain, bumped into his sense of self-preservation, and instead of politely taking its leave, decided to plant itself firmly in his mouth and make a scene. So there he was standing beside Lion on the observation deck of the VTH diplomatic outpost, watching a distant star pulse lazily in the void when he casually turned to her and said, "What would it feel like to kiss me?" Lan did not react immediately. She simply blinked, her long, sharply pointed ears twitching in that subtle way they did when she was processing something truly absurd. The dim blue light of the station's ambient glow caught on the smooth curve of her features, illuminating her faintly silver-tinged skin. She was, by all human standards, breathtaking. Not that Ethan had ever said that out loud. He valued his life. Finally, after what felt like a very long silence, Lurin shifted, crossing her arms. "Is this a serious inquiry?" she asked, her tone impossibly neutral. Ethan, realizing too late that he had no escape route planned, let out an awkward laugh. "I mean, not serious, serious, more like, academic curiosity." Lion arched one elegant eyebrow. "Academic curiosity? Yes, you are attempting to disguise your personal interest in interspecies physicality as scientific research." "I wouldn't put it like that. That is how I am putting it," Ethan groaned, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, forget I said anything." No. Lion turned to fully face him now, her gaze unreadable. "You asked a question, I will answer it." That wasn't what he was expecting. Ethan's breath hitched slightly, though he wasn't sure why. "Okay," he said cautiously. "I'm listening." Lion's violet eyes gleamed in the dim light. "If you and I were to kiss, Ethan, it would not be a simple gesture. It would be irreversible." A chill prickled at the back of his neck. Irreversible? How? She tilted her head slightly, studying him like one might observe a curious but doomed experiment. "Our species does not engage in casual physical intimacy," she explained to us. "Touch is not fleeting. A kiss is not merely an expression of affection or attraction. It is a binding." "A binding?" He swallowed. "Define binding." "If I were to kiss you, our minds would intertwine," she said, as if she were explaining the mechanics of a starship's propulsion system rather than something that sounded deeply unsettling. "We would share thoughts, emotions, memories. There would be no separation between you and me. No secrets, no solitude." She paused, then added almost absently, "and it would be permanent." Ethan stared at her, waiting for the inevitable smirk, the playful "just kidding" that would release him from the growing horror spiraling in his gut. "It never came." "Permanent?" he echoed weakly. Len gave a small nod. "Yes." His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Like forever?" "Yes, as in for the rest of my life, the rest of both our lives, yes." Ethan exhaled sharply. A small silence stretched between them, during which Ethan's brain helpfully replayed every instance in which he had been even remotely close to Lion, every accidental brush of shoulders, every handshake, every shared moment of laughter. He had never been more relieved in his life that she wasn't human, because if she had been, there was a very real chance that at some point he might have actually tried to kiss her, and then, well, you appear distressed. Lion observed her expression, maddeningly composed. Ethan let out a weak chuckle. "Distressed? No, no, I'm fine, just reevaluating all of my life choices." Lion's lips twitched. "Understandable." He let out a breath. "So let me get this straight. VTHS don't do casual kissing or casual anything, really, correct? And if we did kiss, it wouldn't just be a fun little moment, it would be the most intimate experience of your existence." Ethan made a strangled sound in his throat. "Fantastic." She regarded him with quiet amusement. "Does this disappoint you?" "Disappoint?" he huffed. "Lion, I am deeply, profoundly grateful that you told me this before I did something monumentally stupid." "You do many monumentally stupid things," she mused. "I assumed it was part of your charm." "See now, that's just hurtful." She gave him a look that suggested she was neither confirming nor denying the statement. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Okay, well, that answers my question. Thank you for the horrifyingly in-depth response." "You are welcome." He shot her a sideways glance. "Just out of curiosity, has any human ever kissed a VTH before?" Land's expression Shifted ever so slightly, something almost imperceptible in the set of her jaw, the faintest flicker in her gaze not. To my knowledge, something in her tone sent a shiver down his spine, but she exhaled softly. There is an old record, a human and a VTH who attempted such a bond. It is unclear what became of them. Ethan frowned, unclear how Lion hesitated. They vanished. He stared at her. Vanished. She nodded. They were never seen again. It is said that when two minds are not truly meant to be intertwined, they unravel. Ethan felt his stomach drop. Unravel, a poor translation, she admitted. But the warning remains. Ethan let out a long breath, shaking his head. So just to be safe, I should probably not go around kissing any VTHS. An excellent survival strategy, he chuckled. Good to know. For a moment, they stood in silence again. The distant star outside their viewport pulsing rhythmically in the void, and yet despite everything, Ethan couldn't help but feel a strange, lingering curiosity, not about the danger, not about the permanence, but about the way Lion had paused just briefly before answering. Like she too had wondered. Ethan told himself he wasn't thinking about it. That would be ridiculous. There were far more important things to occupy his mind, like the diplomatic negotiations between Earth and the Veth Empire, the upcoming supply shipment that was definitely running late, or the very real possibility that his station issue coffee ration was running dangerously low, and yet his brain, uncooperative as always, kept looping back to Lion's words from the night before. A kiss was permanent, a bond irreversible, an entanglement of mind and soul that could not be undone, and oh, yeah, if done incorrectly, could result in what she had so poetically called unraveling. Ethan didn't like the word unraveling. It was the kind of word that belonged in horror stories, not in the realm of personal relationships. Unfortunately, his brain wasn't content with simply acknowledging the terrifying concept and moving on. No, it had to get creative. What did it mean to have two minds entangled? Would he suddenly start knowing things about Lion he had no business knowing? Would he wake up one morning and instinctively understand Veth astrophysics? Okay, that part didn't sound so bad. Or worse, would he lose himself entirely, dissolving into some kind of weird psychic fusion until he was neither Ethan nor Lion, but something in between? Ethan shuddered. Nope, not thinking about it. Ethan, he nearly jumped out of his skin. Yes. Lion stood before him, arms crossed, giving him a look that was equal parts curiosity and amusement. You have been staring at that data pad for the past 15 minutes without actually reading it. Ethan blinked. He looked down at the pad in his hands, which he was indeed holding upside down. He said, would you look at that? Lion's ears twitched. You are preoccupied. Nope, you are absolutely not. She exhaled. You are thinking about last night's conversation. He started to protest, but then stopped because, well, yeah, she wasn't wrong. Lan observed him for a moment, then spoke again, her voice measured. You are unsettled by the concept. Can you blame me? Ethan set the data pad down and gestured vaguely. This whole thing is pretty mind-blowing. Humans just don't work like that. For us, a kiss is, well, it can mean different things: affection, passion, even just curiosity, but it's never permanent. I understand, Lion said. Ethan sighed. Yeah, well, my brain doesn't. He tapped his temple. It keeps running simulations, what ifs, the kind that make a man question every life choice he's ever made. Lion tilted her head slightly, studying him with that unreadable expression of hers. Then, to his surprise, she asked, would it help to know what such a bond feels like? Ethan blinked. Not firsthand, right? She gave him a dry look. Of course, not good, because as much as I appreciate first-hand experience, I'd prefer to keep my consciousness firmly inside my own skull. Lion considered this for a moment. A Veth bond is not painful, she explained. It is an expansion, a deepening of the self, a merging of perspectives. It is the act of two minds coexisting without barriers. Ethan frowned. No barriers, so like no secrets, no privacy, none. His frown deepened. But that's how do you even function like that? Doesn't it get overwhelming? Lion hesitated. For us it is natural, but I suspect for a human it would be disorienting. That's one way to put it. Ethan exhaled sharply, leaning back against the console. Look, I get that it's normal for you and I respect that, but for humans, being in a relationship means having boundaries. Even when we care about someone, we still keep parts of ourselves separate, not because we don't trust them, but because, well, we need Space to be ourselves. Lion studied him for a long moment, then to his absolute shock she nodded. That makes sense. Ethan stared at us. She arched a brow. Did you assume I would not attempt to understand? I mean, kind of lure inside your species is fascinating, but your tendency to assume that alien cultures cannot grasp human emotions is tiresome. Ethan chuckled. Yeah, okay, fair. A comfortable silence settled between them for a moment, then, because he apparently had a death wish, Ethan grinned and said, so if I wanted to kiss you, I'd have to be 100% sure. Lion didn't blink. Yes. And if I wasn't sure, you'd stop me. She tilted her head. Would you want me to? Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, because his brain had short-circuited somewhere in the middle of that response. Lion smirked ever so slightly. You are amusing. Ethan groaned. Fantastic. I live to amuse. Good, she said, entirely serious. You are at your most tolerable when you do. Ethan rolled his eyes. I can't tell if that was an insult or a compliment. She turned to leave. Yes, he sighed, shaking his head as he watched her go. Unbelievable, and yet despite everything, despite the terrifying implications of their conversation, despite his own very human instincts screaming at him to never ever entertain the idea, he couldn't help but wonder, not about the unraveling, not about the risks, but about what it would feel like. Ethan had survived a lot of things in his time: hostile alien negotiations, an unfortunate incident involving a malfunctioning zero-gravity toilet, and that one time he accidentally ate something from a diplomatic banquet that had apparently been meant strictly for ceremonial purposes, but none of that compared to the sheer test of endurance he was currently facing, pretending like the whole kiss equals permanent soul entanglement conversation wasn't living rent-free in his brain, because it was. Oh, it was, and the worst part, Lion knew it. He could tell by the way she occasionally glanced at him during meetings, her expression ever so slightly amused, by the way her ears twitched when he got flustered by the fact that she was very deliberately not bringing it up, which meant she knew he was thinking about it and she was letting him squirm. This was a game to her. Well, two could play that game, or at least that's what he told himself before he ended up making a complete fool of himself in the mess hall. It started with something simple, a casual conversation over food rations, as one did when stationed on a distant diplomatic outpost with limited culinary options. Lion had just sat down across from him, elegantly picking at whatever vaguely gelatinous dish was in front of her, when Ethan, brilliant, socially adept man that he was, decided to break the silence with. So, any more fun facts about Veeth bonding rituals you'd like to share? Lion paused, fork hovering midair, then very deliberately she set it down. Are you asking because you wish to know, she said, or because you wish to see how much discomfort you can endure before you overheat and combust? Ethan huffed. Hey, I'm a professional. Lion arched a brow. Okay, fine, I'm curious, he admitted, taking a sip of something that was allegedly coffee, but tasted more like industrial-grade solvent. I mean, you said kissing forms a permanent connection, but what about other stuff like, I don't know, hand holding? Lion tilted her head slightly, as if considering his question. Hand-holding is an expression of familiarity. It does not form a bond, but it does indicate trust. Ethan tapped his fingers against the table. What about hugging? Lion hesitated. Hugging is intimate. Ethan frowned, but not binding. No, then why the hesitation? Lion exhaled slowly. Because a hug requires more than physical closeness. For a Veeth, it means exposing oneself emotionally, lowering defenses. It is not done lightly. Ethan nodded slowly. So let me get this straight. Hand-holding is fine. Hugging is serious. Kissing is permanent psychic fusion. Do not attempt unless certain. That is an accurate summary. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a low whistle. You guys really don't do casual, huh? No. Ethan shook his head, grinning. Man, you must think humans are absolutely ridiculous. Lion gave him a thoughtful look. Not ridiculous, merely different. Half now she picked up her fork again, considering her words. Your species is willing to touch without meaning. You express affection without permanence. You experience deep emotions, yet you do not always act upon them. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, well, sometimes emotions are complicated. Lion regarded him for a moment, then gave a small nod. That I do understand. They fell into a comfortable silence, the distant hum of The Asian systems filling the space between them, Ethan found himself studying her, not just her features, but the way she carried herself, the way she always seemed so composed. He wondered not for the first time what it would be like to see her truly unguarded. He wasn't sure why the thought sent a strange shiver down his spine, so he cleared his throat. What happens if a human and a VTH actually bond? Lion didn't look up. It has never happened, right? But what if it did? She hesitated. Theoretically, her fingers traced the rim of her cup. The human would change. Ethan blinked. Change how? There would be an adaptation, a shift in perception. They would begin to experience the world as we do. Ethan narrowed his eyes. You're being vague on purpose. Lion gave him a ghost of a smile. Yes, he groaned. That's not fair. On the contrary, it is entirely fair. Ethan sighed, shaking his head. You love messing with me, don't you? I find it entertaining, she admitted. Well, at least you're honest about it. He took another sip of his truly awful coffee, then hesitated. Wait, have you ever? Lion's expression shifted ever so slightly. No. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You didn't even let me finish. There was no need. I know what you were going to ask. Do you? Yes. All right, psychic. What was I going to say? You were going to ask if I have ever formed a bond. Ethan grinned. Okay, yeah. You got me. Lion's gaze was steady. The answer remains no. Ethan studied her for a long moment. Not even close. Her lips parted slightly, as if she were about to say something, then, just as quickly, she stopped herself. Instead, she pushed her chair back and stood. That is a converse Asian for another time, she said simply. Ethan watched her go, his curiosity only growing. For a species that claimed to have no barriers between minds, she sure had a lot of secrets, and for a man who absolutely positively should not have been entertaining any further thoughts on the matter, Ethan was beginning to realize he might be in trouble. Ethan was not obsessed. Sure, the whole permanent soul entanglement thing had been living rent-free in his brain ever since Lion had dropped that little tidbit of information on him, and yes, maybe he'd spent an unhealthy amount of time wondering what it actually felt like, but that didn't mean he was obsessed. He was merely scientifically curious, a completely reasonable reaction, considering the circumstances at least. That's what he told himself as he sat in the station's observation deck, staring out at the vast stretch of space beyond. The reinforced glass stars shimmered in the distance, scattered across the void like cosmic breadcrumbs leading to a million places he'd never see. It was a beautiful view, serene and completely useless in distracting him from the thoughts rattling around in his head. With a sigh, he leaned back in his seat and muttered, I am not obsessed. Humans often say such things when they are in fact obsessed. Ethan nearly jumped out of his skin. For Lion, do you have to sneak up on me like that? Lauren, standing beside him with her usual unnerving grace, tilted her head. I did not sneak, I walked. Well, walk louder next time, Ethan grumbled, pressing a hand to his chest. I don't need to die of a heart attack in deep space. Thanks. Lan considered this. If you did, it would be statistically notable. Excuse me, heart failure is rare among human personnel stationed in artificial gravity environments, she explained. If it happened to you, you would become an anomaly. Ethan blinked. Wow, that is a deeply unsettling thing to say. Lion's ears twitched in something that might have been amusement. You are resilient. I doubt you will perish from mere surprise. Good to know, Ethan muttered, shaking his head. So what brings you up here? Didn't peg you as the stargazing type. Lion glanced out the window. I enjoy moments of stillness. Ethan watched her for a moment. There was something about the way she stood, shoulders just a little too stiff, hands clasped neatly behind her back, that made him think she wasn't as calm as she wanted to appear. Curious, so he said casually, if you've never formed a bond before, does that mean you've never you? No. Lion turned to face him, expression unreadable. Never. What? Ethan cleared his throat. You know, been with someone. A long silence, then Lauren said, as if suddenly understanding something profound. You are asking whether I have engaged in physical intimacy. Ethan made a strangled noise. Well, when you put it like that, you were not being subtle. I was trying. Lion studied him for a moment, then to his absolute horror said, do you wish to discuss the specifics of human veth compatibility? Ethan choked on air. No, absolutely not. Lion's lips curved into something dangerously close to a smirk. You are amusing when flustered. Fantastic, Ethan muttered. rubbing his temples, glad I could provide some entertainment. For a moment silence stretched between them, then in a tone far more serious, Lion said, to answer your question, I have never experienced what you would consider romantic attachment. Ethan hesitated, suddenly feeling like he'd stumbled onto something delicate. Not even close, she exhaled softly, looking out at the stars. Again, my people do not form connections easily. To bond with another is to give up solitude entirely. It is not something one does lightly. Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, I can see why that be a big deal. Lauren was quiet for a long time, then almost too softly to hear, she said, it is not just the bonding that is difficult, it is the idea of being truly known. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured. A Veth bond does not allow for deception. There is no hiding, no secrets. Everything, every thought, every fear, every shame is laid bare. Ethan swallowed. Sounds intense. It is. He considered that for a moment, then said, you ever think that maybe humans do things differently because we need that space, that little bit of distance? Lion's gaze flickered to him. You fear being known, I think, Ethan said carefully. That everyone has parts of themselves they don't want to share, not because they don't care about the other person, but because sometimes it's hard to even admit those things to yourself. Len was silent for a long time, then she said very quietly, yes. Ethan glanced at her, startled by the admission, but before he could say anything, Lion straightened, brushing a hand over the sleeve of her uniform. It is late, you should rest. Ethan exhaled. Yeah, probably, as she turned to leave. Something in him, some deep, stupid part of him said, say something. So before he could stop himself, he called out, hey, Lion. She paused, glancing back. Yes. Ethan hesitated, then said, for what it's worth, I don't think knowing you would be a bad thing. Ian blinked for a moment. She simply looked at him, really looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then just as quickly she turned away. I will see you tomorrow, she said, and walked out of the room. Ethan let out a slow breath. Yep. He was in trouble. Ethan had made a grave mistake, not a galaxy-ending war starting kind of mistake. No, this was far worse. He had somehow, against all logic and reason, developed a full-blown, undeniable, completely ill-advised crush on Lion, and it was ruining his life. It wasn't just that she was absurdly graceful, or that her voice had a way of making even the most casual statements sound profound. It wasn't even the way her long ears twitched when she was deep in thought, a tiny, nearly imperceptible movement that Ethan found way too distracting. No, the real problem was that ever since their late-night conversation in the observation deck, she had started looking at him different. Lie, not dramatically. Lauren wasn't exactly the type for grand gestures, but it was there in the way she seemed just a little more attuned to his presence, the way her gaze lingered for a second too long, the way she occasionally threw out remarks that made Ethan wonder if he was the one being studied now. It was frankly unfair, and Ethan, because he had the self-preservation instincts of a lemming, had decided that the best way to deal with his growing feelings was to pretend they didn't exist. That lasted approximately 3 days before everything went horribly wrong. It started with a simple maintenance check. The station's environmental systems had been acting up, nothing critical, just enough to make things inconvenient. Temperature fluctuations, odd humidity levels, the occasional mysterious hiss of something that probably wasn't meant to hiss so naturally. Ethan had volunteered to help because that was a smart, logical decision, nothing at all to do with the fact that Lion had also volunteered, which was how he ended up squeezed into a cramped maintenance tunnel, pressed far too close to her. As they worked in awkward silence, Ethan focused on the wiring panel in front of him, trying not to be hyper-aware of how her shoulder brushed against his every time one of them shifted. Okay, he muttered, looks like one of the thermal regulators got misaligned. I just need to. A sudden vibration rock the tunnel, followed by an ominous clunk. The dim overhead lights flickered. Ethan froze. Was that supposed to happen? Lion calmly checking the readings on her wrist device replied, no. Oh good, Ethan said weakly, because for a second there I thought we might be in trouble. We are. Ethan exhaled sharply. Fantastic. Lauren tapped at her device. The system detected an imbalance and initiated an automatic lockdown. The access hatches have sealed themselves until the system resets. We are trapped. Ethan blinked. You're telling me we just got ourselves Locked in a vent, Lion's expression remained impassive. Yes, Ethan groaned. Leaning his head back against the wall, this is so much worse than getting stuck in an elevator. Lion raised an eyebrow. Have you been stuck in an elevator before? Not important. A pause then. Because the universe had a cruel sense of humor, the station's temperature regulation finally gave out completely. Sending a burst of cold air through the vents, Ethan shivered violently. Oh, come. Lauren, meanwhile, barely reacted. Ethan shot her a look. How are you not freezing? My physiology is more efficient at retaining heat, Ethan grumbled. Yeah, well, my physiology is currently plotting my demise. He rubbed his arms. Okay, new plan. We figure out how to override the system. Before I turn into a human popsicle. Lion was quiet for a moment, then with absolutely no warning, she moved closer. Ethan went rigid. What are you? Without a word. Lion pulled him against her, pressing her body flush against his. Ethan's brain shut down. There was simply no other way to describe it, because suddenly all he could think about was the fact that Lion was warm, very warm, and she was holding him, and her scent was something light and strange, and completely unfair. This will preserve your body heat, she said matter-of-factly. Ethan made a strangled sound. Yepaha, totally logical, no arguments here. He was so not surviving this. Minutes past. The only sound was the faint hum of the station around them. Lion remained perfectly composed, as if this was just another ordinary day, and she hadn't just destroyed Ethan's ability to function as a rational being. Ethan, meanwhile, was dying, so he blurted, mostly to distract himself, this isn't like a weird bonding thing, right? Lion exhaled a breath of amusement against his ear. No. Ethan relaxed slightly. Oh, good, because I don't think I could handle another surprise about. However, she continued, were I to initiate a bond, the process would not be dissimilar. Ethan froze. What? Lauren tilted her head slightly, her cheek brushing against his. Physical proximity allows for the alignment of neural patterns. Ethan swallowed hard. You do realize that means absolutely nothing to me, right? It means, Lauren said, her voice soft, that to bond I would need to be close to you. Ethan's heart did something deeply embarrassing. Oh, another pause. Then, ever so lightly, Lion added, closer than this. Ethan XC had officially stopped working. He couldn't even tell if she was messing with him anymore before he could figure out how to respond, if he even could respond. The environmental system let out a loud beep, and the hatches released with a hiss. Lauren pulled back. Ethan immediately missed her warmth, which was a whole other problem he wasn't ready to address. We should go, Lauren said smoothly, as if she hadn't just fried every remaining brain cell he possessed. Ethan, still processing, simply nodded as they crawled out of the tunnel. Lion glanced at him. Are you well? Ethan let out a weak laugh. Oh, just peachy. No life-altering revelations happening here. Lion gave him a knowing look. Ethan groaned. He was so doomed. Ethan had been through a lot of awkward situations in his life. There was the time he insulted an ambassador's prize pet. He swore he thought it was a sculpture. There was the time he miscalculated a station's artificial gravity and ended up floating mid-sentence during an important briefing, and then there was the time he got stuck in an airlock with a malfunctioning auto-wash cycle, which resulted in him being violently sanitized in front of half the crew. But none of those moments even came close to the sheer mind-melting awkwardness of standing next to Lion in the mess hall after that incident in the event, because now Ethan had thoughts about how warm she had been, how close, how she had casually mentioned that bonding required even closer proximity, how for one brief, completely reckless moment, he had actually wondered what that would be like, and the big problem was that now he couldn't stop wondering. Which was how he ended up standing next to Lion, completely zoning out while holding a tray of food, only to realize she was watching him with an expression of quiet amusement. You are starring, she said calmly. Ethan jolted. What? No, he cut himself off, realizing that yes, he absolutely had been starring. He quickly cleared his throat. I was just lost in thought. Lion tilted her head about. Ethan panicked. Space stuff. A beat. Lion raised an eyebrow. Ethan immediately regretted his choice of words. You know the vastness of it, the mysteries. The he gestured vaguely. Stars. Lion's lips twitched. Of course, Ethan groaned. Internally, smooth, very smooth, before he could make things any worse, a voice interrupted. Hey, Ethan. Ethan turned to see Dr. Wren, the station's chief Medical officer approaching with a data pad in hand, she was a sharp non-nonsense woman who had exactly zero patience for nonsense, which made it unfortunate that Ethan seemed to generate nonsense just by existing. You've got your quarterly medical checkup today, Dr. Wren said. Figured I'd remind you before you try to accidentally forget again. Ethan grimaced. Right, that's today, Dr. Wren smirked. Don't worry, I'll make it quick and painful. I feel so reassured. Lauren glanced between them. A medical checkup, Ethan sighed. Yeah, just the usual poking and prodding to make sure I'm still, functional. Lion considered this, then in a tone that was far too casual she said, I will accompany you. Ethan choked on his own saliva. What? Dr. Wren gave Lion a curious look. That's not really necessary. Lauren remained impassive. I wish to observe. Ethan felt his brain short circuit. Why? Lion looked at him as if the answer was obvious. To ensure your continued well-being. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Dr. Wren meanwhile just shrugged. Fine by me. I could use an extra set of hands if he tries to bolt. I wouldn't bolt, Ethan said indignantly. Dr. Wren stared at him. Ethan sighed. Okay, maybe I'd bolt. Lion, to his surprise, actually looked pleased. Ethan had a very bad feeling about this. 15 minutes later, Ethan was sitting on a medical cot while Dr. Wren ran her scans. Lauren stood a few feet away watching. With unnerving focus, Ethan tried very hard to act normal. So Dr. Wren said as she checked her data pad, any unusual symptoms? Dizziness, fatigue, sudden inexplicable urges to make terrible decisions. Ethan frowned. No. Dr. Wren made a skeptical noise. Debate able. Ethan sighed. Look, I'm fine. Lion, still watching, said he has been experiencing increased nervousness in my presence. Ethan nearly fell off the cot. Excuse me. Dr. Wren paused. Then with great interest she looked between them. Is that so? Lion nodded. Elevated heart rate, unusual hesitance in speech, frequent distractions. Ethan's face went very warm. That is not, I mean, that's just, look, I've been under a lot of stress. Lion considered this then, as if she hadn't just completely derailed Ethan's dignity. She turned to Dr. Wren. Are these symptoms concerning? Dr. Wren, clearly enjoying this, tapped her chin. Hard to say. Could be anxiety, could be something else. She smirked. Could be a reaction to certain stimuli. Ethan groaned. Please, I am begging you both to stop talking. Doctor ignored him, instead holding up a small device. All right, last test, neural scan, standard procedure. Land's expression shifted slightly. A neural scan? Dr. Wren nodded. Checks for any irregularities in cognitive function. Lion's gaze flickered briefly to Ethan. I would like to see the results. Ethan frowned. Why? Lion met his eyes. Curiosity. That was not a reassuring answer. Dr. Wren, unaware of or possibly ignoring the tension, ran the scan. A few seconds later her data pad beeped. She examined the results, then froze. Ethan immediately tensed. What is it? Dr. Wren frowned at the screen. That's odd. Ethan's stomach dropped. Define odd. Dr. Wren hesitated. Your neural patterns are slightly altered. Ethan's blood ran cold. Altered how? Dr. Wren didn't answer immediately. Instead she turned the data pad so Lion could see. Lion's expression was unreadable. After a long moment she said very softly, it has begun. Ethan's brain went into full panic mode. What has begun? Lion finally looked at him, her gaze steady. The bond. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. The what? Lion exhaled. It seems I was mistaken. Ethan stared at her. Mistaken about what? Lion met his gaze, her voice calm but firm. We are already connected. Ethan had experienced many emotions in his life: curiosity, excitement, confusion, mild regret over eating suspicious space food, but existential dread mixed with baffling fascination was a new one he stared at. Lion, his mind struggling to process her words. We are already connected. Nope, he said, standing abruptly. Absolutely not. Dr. Wren, still peering at the neural scan, raised an eyebrow. You do realize denial doesn't actually change reality, right? I'm aware of that, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. I just need it. Second to he turned to Lion. When you say connected, you mean like metaphorically, right? Spiritually, maybe. In a vague, poetic way. Lion's expression remained infuriatingly calm. No, Ethan Wynn. Yeah, I figured. Dr. Wren, far too amused for his liking, leaned back against the counter. So what does this bond actually mean? Because if it's some kind of space parasite, I want a sample. Lion sighed. It is not a parasite. She looked at Ethan. It is A link, a merging of awareness, a sharing of presence. Ethan groaned. Could you please use words that don't sound like something out of a mystical prophecy? Lion tilted her head. It means that in time you will sense my thoughts and emotions as I sense yours. Ethan felt all the air leave his lungs. Wait, you can already sense mine. Lion hesitated. Not entirely, but I feel the echoes. Ethan made a strangled noise. Oh. Fantastic, that's not terrifying at all. Lion's lips twitched. I have noted that. Your internal monologue is particularly dramatic, Doctor. Wren burst out laughing. Ethan groaned, rubbing his temples. Okay, let's be rational about this. How did this even happen? I didn't kiss you, which according to your whole permanent bond explanation should mean I'm safe, right? Lurin exhaled. I believe the bond required direct physical contact, but our proximity, our shared moments, it seems it was enough. Ethan blinked. So what, you bonded to me through sheer vibes? Dr. Wren wheezed. Lion for the first time looked uncertain. It is possible. Ethan sat back down, staring at the ceiling. Unbelievable, I've been vibe imprinted by an alien. Doctor Wren wiped her eyes, still chuckling. Well, I'd say congratulations are in order. Ethan shot her a look. For what? Dr. Wren smirked. You're in an interspecies soul marriage. Apparently. Lion frowned. That is not the correct term. Ethan groaned. Nothing about this is correct. Lion's amusement faded. I understand that this is overwhelming for you. Ethan sighed, rubbing his face. That is one word for it. He hesitated. So what? Now Lion studied him. That depends on you. Ethan frowned. On me. Lion nodded. The bond is forming, but it is not yet complete. If you truly wish to sever it, there are methods. Ethan hesitated. And if I don't? Lion's gaze softened. Then it will deepen. We will grow attuned to each other. In time you will not be able to hide from me, nor I from you. Ethan swallowed. That was a lot. Would that be bad? He asked quietly. Lion didn't answer right away. Then softly she said, not for me. Ethan looked at her, his chest tightening. Dr. Wren thankfully had enough self-awareness to realize this was not the moment for snark. She set the data pad down. Well, you two have a lot to talk about. My job here is done. She grinned. Try not to explode from psychic feedback or whatever. Ethan glared at her. You're the least helpful doctor in the universe. Flattery will get you nowhere, she said, already walking out. See you at your next checkup, bonded boy. Ethan turned back to Laren. She was watching him, her expression unreadable. He exhaled. So if I don't sever the bond, what happens? Laren hesitated. It is not easy to explain, but you will know one day. You will wake and feel my presence as surely as your own. Ethan considered this. It should have terrified him, but instead he found himself asking, and if I don't mind that? Lion's breath hitched just slightly. She stepped closer. Then you will not be alone. Ethan swallowed hard. That doesn't sound so bad. Lion's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Number it does not. For once Ethan had no witty remark, just the steady quiet certainty that against all logic, all reason, he wasn't running away from this. He was stepping forward, and Lion was waiting.